All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a really specific U.S. foreign policy approach by looking at how it's playing out with two key countries, Iran and Venezuela. You know, everything we're about to talk about really boils down to this one powerful phrase: very strong options. This is the exact language that was used to talk about the U.S. position on Iran, and it just perfectly sets the tone for this wider, much more assertive foreign policy. But what does a phrase like that actually mean when push comes to shove? Well, that gets us to the big idea for today, what some are calling a hard-edged approach to foreign policy. We're going to dig into what that actually looks like by seeing how this one core strategy gets applied in some very different ways to handle totally separate challenges around the globe. So first up, let's take a look at our first case study, Iran. This is where that assertive language is maybe the most direct, with a clear focus on potential military action in the Middle East. So what's the deal here? Well, according to the sources we're looking at, the U.S. is thinking about these strong responses because of how Iran is cracking down on its own internal protesters. And that's a really important detail. This isn't about an external conflict. It's about an internal situation that's now getting major international attention. Now, what's so fascinating here is this kind of dual strategy that's unfolding. On one hand, you have a very explicit threat, right? The idea of military action is still on the table if the violence keeps up. But then, on the other hand, there's this little note that Tehran has apparently reached out to start talking. It's a classic carrot and stick approach, and we're seeing it play out right now. Okay, let's switch gears and see how this very same assertive approach looks in a completely different part of the world, Venezuela. We're going from the Middle East to South America, and here, the pressure isn't about military threats, it's all about economics. This source material points to a really interesting situation here. Instead of talking about military options, the administration is reportedly thinking about restricting a major American company, ExxonMobil, from developing oil in Venezuela. And this seems to be a reaction to the company's CEO saying he was skeptical about investing there. And this is a perfect illustration of what that hard-edged approach can mean. See, it's not just about confronting other countries. It's a policy that uses really firm language and action to protect what it sees as national interests. And that focus can even be turned toward huge domestic companies to get them in line with a bigger geopolitical game plan. So here's the crucial thing to understand. These examples from Iran and Venezuela, they aren't just random, isolated events. They actually seem to be part of a much bigger, more consistent pattern of assertive language and action. Let's try and connect some of those dots. This slide just lays it all out side by side. For Iran, the tool on the table is military force in response to internal violence. But for Venezuela, the tool is economic pressure aimed at corporate activity. So you've got two different regions, two different kinds of problems, but both are being handled with tools from the exact same assertive playbook. And this pattern goes even further. The source material also talks about tougher language being used toward Cuba, a very public focus on U.S. interests in places you might not expect, like Greenland, and pressure being applied in other regions too. It really shows that this approach is being used all over the map, not just in our too many examples. Okay, so we've looked at all these different pieces. What's the final takeaway here? What does all of this signal about this particular foreign policy style? Here's the bottom line. Whether we're talking about the potential for military force in the Middle East, using economic leverage in South America, or strategic posturing up in the Arctic, it all points back to a single, consistent foreign policy. It's a stance that is defined by assertive action and very firm rhetoric, and it's being applied flexibly to a whole bunch of different international issues and places. And that really leaves us with a huge question to think about. As this assertive approach is used more and more, what does that actually signal for the future of global diplomacy? It's something worth keeping in mind. Thanks for tuning in.